All right, welcome to the standing poses portion of the training. So last module focused on those poses that were a little closer to the ground, our seated, prone, supine poses, and our kneeling poses. Now we're taking it to the feet. We're going to look at wider stance, narrow stance, one-legged balances, as well as twists and even standing inversions. Again, please reflect on what you are feeling during these poses, maybe where you have struggles within your own body. And how can you translate the things that you learn to do for your students as they develop in their practice? So let's get started. We'll start off with wide stances. All right, if we take a look at our wide stance poses, we can see that the feet are generally about 3 feet or so apart, depending on how long the legs are. The different stances are going to have different directions of the feet, and we'll also take a look at those joints that move up from the ground, so the knees and the hips in particular with these standing poses. Let's take a look. Wide stances. So we could start off by just standing in our mountain pose and turning one foot out 90 degrees. Step it 1, 2, 3 feet lengths away. All right, so we're going to start off with our warrior 2. So we have 1 foot where toes are pointed forward. We have the other foot where the toes are pointed off to the side. And I say forward because we want our chest facing forward. We're going to bend the knee so that the knee is over top of the ankle. Remember our inversion with that back foot. So we're going to press in the pinky edge of that back foot, still keeping the other sides pressed in, grounding everything, but making sure that we have this inversion through the ankle. And then driving in through the base of the big toe of the front foot. So this is our warrior 2. We have the direction of the feet. We have the activation as we bend the knee. We're going to externally rotate. The hips are going to stay forward and squared underneath of the shoulders. Open the arms out to the sides. And then we're going to rotate the head and look out over that middle finger of the front reaching hand. Nice. Let's take it to the other side. Rotating the feet. Finding your inversion. Planting through the base of the big toe. And bending that knee. Noticing the lengthening, the stretching here to the inner thigh of that back leg. Reaching out with the arms. Remember, those shoulders are stacked over top, so we don't want reaching forward. Chest is lifted, and eyes are focused over that front leg. Now let's come back to the other side. We'll find our warrior 2, pressing into the feet, drawing the inner thighs together, allowing that external rotation for the hips to come forward so everything is in a nice straight line, right underneath of the arms. Now, straighten the front leg. We're going to keep a micro bend, but I want you to feel differently what's going on in the feet. We don't have nearly as much inversion. Remember, way down here with our warrior 2. but we still have a slight amount. We're rooting in. If you're driving in through the base of that big toe, so it's much easier when we have that knee bent and the weight is coming straight down. But with the straight leg, notice how drawing those inner thighs together might feel a little different. Extend those arms out. Now, bend the knees and just notice in your warrior two, your hips are going to stay nice and square like they're sitting on a table. In our triangle pose, we want to have a little pendulum swing. We want that front hip to come underneath of the back hip as we reach. So now we're going to reach, drop the hand, open the chest, and look up at the sky into your triangle pose. And bring it up. Notice any differences there? Let's come back down, warrior two. Rooting in, pressing into the ground, driving the inner thighs together. Notice the sensation. Straighten the leg. Pressing in, draw the inner thighs together. Notice what might be different. Are you feeling different muscles working here? Feel the pendulum swing. Arms extended. Drop. And reaching up. Find that triangle pose. So the feet need to stay pressed in and the inner thighs drawing together in order to keep the stability in that pose. So let's take a look at an extended side angle. So we're going to come back into warrior two. And we're just going to take our elbow to that front knee. Other arm reaches up overhead. Squeeze through the glutes and pull the hips forward. We want to avoid hind corners coming out behind us. We want everything to be in a nice straight line. So this is something to look for when you are teaching this pose. We want that alignment. Another option, bringing the hand to the ground and arms to 6 and 12 o'clock. One other option, a core engaging option, bringing the arms up overhead. Whew. Let's come back to the elbow. So we're going to go from this position. We may be leaning into that leg, letting the upper body rest. So I'm going to encourage you to engage through the lower body as you rise up to warrior two and back to reverse. And go ahead and do it again. Now, if you practice in a mirror, you might notice this. Watch when I come up. Oh, my leg straightens. Now my leg bends. So when practicing this, see if you can stay nice and low. See if those muscles in the legs can stay activated. Let's come back up, switch the feet, take it to the other side. Warrior two, elbow to the knee, cross it over. And remember, look up at the sky. If your arm is in front and you can't see, pull the shoulder back. That's going to stack those shoulder blades. And staying nice and low, draw into the feet, pull the inner thighs together, back into reverse. And forward. Just a little flow here. Notice your own tendencies. Think about what you need to keep in mind in order to avoid those tendencies and translate that into cueing for your own students. Straighten that leg. Let's go into goddess. So now we'll have both feet pointed 45 degrees outward. Hands can come to heart center. Let's take our hands actually down to the thighs. because the first time through, I like to give a little support just so that stretching through the inner thigh can be supported. And coming back up, arms overhead, hands to heart center, dropping down into goddess. So those feet, all four corners, are pressing in. We want the knees going out in the same direction as the feet, the toes are pointed. Another point, wide squats oftentimes bring the hips back as we move into wide squats. So if you're used to this exercise, you may tend to want to do this in your goddess pose. However, goddess pose, you want to imagine that your back is up against an imaginary wall. And when you come down, everything opens to the side. So let's try that, reaching up and down. Hold it here. Press in through the feet. Pull the hips forward so you're kind of pulling. You'll feel those external rotators working. And reach up and down. Chest is lifted. Crown of the head floating up to the sky. Whew, good workout. So that's our wide stance poses that we're going to cover. If you have other ones that you like, explore those for yourself. Take some notes, bring them to the group meet. All right, our narrow stance poses. So these are where the feet will be ideally hip width apart or closer in. So we're narrowing the base, and this will require a little more activation in the legs, because oftentimes our students will feel like it's just a relaxed standing position. And our yoga poses are not just relaxed and standing. We're oftentimes engaging all kinds of muscles. So let's take a look at these narrow stance poses. Okay, so narrow stance. Hip width apart. Let's just come into it. We all know the name of this one, right? Mountain pose, Tadasana. Feet are hip width apart. We can pick up our toes, spread them out, and then grip your toes into your mat. Notice that when we pick up our toes and we rock back a little bit on the heels, you may feel your knees want to lock, but when you root those toes in, you'll find a soft bend come to the knees. We want that soft bend. We also want some engagement in the quadriceps. So start to squeeze those quadriceps, feel the kneecaps lift, and draw the inner thighs together. Using a block between the legs is a great way of helping students gain some awareness of the activation through the legs with our mountain pose. Another thing we want to think of is a slight tilt to the pelvis. So the tailbone drops a little bit, lengthening through the lower back, engaging through the core. So sometimes we have the tails want to stick out a little bit in this pose because we're like, oh, mountain pose. But that's not actually what we're going for. We want this little drop. We want the heart lifted, but it's not a back bend. So rooting through, top of the head starts lifting up towards the sky. Good. Now I'm going to bring the feet closer, samastitihi. So we'll take the big toes together, and we want the outer edge of the feet to be parallel to your mat. So now our legs are closer. Please be mindful. We have all kinds of wonderful shapes and sizes of bodies. So this may not be available for some people, or it may not be a good alignment choice. If we have a lot of tissue for the thigh muscles and they draw the feet in, they may be putting pressure to the outer knee. We don't want that. So just making sure that you're giving those options and awarenesses to your students. But with Samastitahi, traditionally, those big toes are touching. We will engage the same way through the feet, through the legs, drawing the inner thighs together, tucking down that belly, hands to heart center here. A great awareness with Samastitahi. So Samastitahi translates as equal standing. So a great awareness tool here is with hands at heart to close your eyes. Take the awareness into your feet and notice if you are shifting at all through the pressure in the bottoms of the feet. If you do notice that shifting or a little swaying through the body, see if you can use a softness through the feet without losing the engagement through the thighs to soften and deepen into that rooting sensation, finding some more stability. And release. So that's a great awareness tool. You can also do that with Tadasana, although with the feet a little bit wider, it is easier to find that balance. So drawing the feet together can oftentimes bring a little awareness, and it's a great centering tool. So next, we're going to move on to chair pose, Utkatasana. It actually translates Sanskrit into fierce pose. So it looks like we're sitting in a chair, but it is fierce on the legs. So let's come into our mountain pose. Feet are hip width apart or slightly drawn in a little bit more. So we're going to root through that lower body just like in Tadasana. And then we're going to start bending the knees. Notice those heels or the toes will want to pick up and put weight in the heels. Root through the toes. And we're going to tuck that tailbone, draw the belly in, keep the chest lifted as we reach up. Or hands can be to heart center, or they can be reaching out. Whatever works for you, shoulders are dropped down. You're going to feel a lot of activation here. Again, putting a block in between the thighs can really help with that engagement through the muscles. And if you're really feeling like you want to challenge, rock up to the balls of the feet, maybe sweep the arms back. Nice, shake that out. That really works it. Next, Malasana. So we'll stretch those quads a little bit. We're going to take our feet just outside of the hips and turn the toes directly 45 degrees out. We're just going to squat. So let those knees bend. Coming down. Many times the heels will come up for students, and that's okay. They can take a little wider if they want. Ideally, those feet should be flat. And we want the palms together, pressing into the inner knee to help open up the hips and lift into the heart. The knees will push back into the hands, pressing together. While you're here, I'd like you to bring awareness to your sit bones. So we're on our feet, we're rooting through our feet. But can you feel those sit bones reaching towards the ground as if they were magnets being drawn to their opposite down below? Lift that heart. See if you can find that balance. This is a fun position to just let people drop down into a seated pose. Right, bringing the balance onto one leg. So what our focus will be at the beginning is how to get your students to root through the standing leg, and then to be able to stay rooted, to keep that strong pillar of stability while they have the body and the opposite leg going in different directions. So let's take a look at how we can get into these poses. One-legged balance. I often like to start us off in mountain pose, getting into all of those engagement cues. So think for a moment, what were those engagement cues? What do you do with the feet? How about with the quadriceps? How about the inner thighs? What about the pelvis? The core, the abs? All right, so we're going to root through the feet, contract into the quadriceps, lifting the kneecaps, draw the inner thighs together, tuck that tailbone, brace through the core. So remember, we want this tucking sensation, but we also want this top of the pubic bone engaging, pulling towards the sternum to help activate the core muscles. Shift into your left leg and just begin to peel your right leg up, making sure that you don't pop into a hip, that everything stays activated, nice and tall, from that standing foot out through the crown of the head. We could just lift the knee. You can hold it. Sometimes this is the challenge for your students. Just being able to root through that standing leg. If they're ready, point a toe and stick it right out, straight in front. Padangustasana D. What we don't want is leaning way back. We still want to keep that nice, tall body as we lift up. So go ahead and try that. Notice that's really going to work here. Think about what would be a great counter pose after you've spent a couple of minutes in this pose. Let's move on to the other side. Go back to your mountain pose, engage through the legs, and then gently start to press through the standing leg, peeling up the left foot. You can hold it while we're just focusing right now on that great strong pillar of strength. And then pointing the toe. Oh, this side's harder for me. My foot doesn't go up as far. How about you? Hold it and bring it down. Nice, shake it out. So a great counter pose here is to go back to the other side. Bring the heel to the buttock and press through that bent knee as if you were trying to drive it down through to the middle of the earth, reaching up with the opposite hand. This is our modified flamingo. So the heel comes to the buttock, squeezing through the glutes, pulling the hip forward and dropping that knee. Finding that flamingo pose. Let's do it on the other side because it feels good. Lift and engage. Heart is lifted and we're still rooting through that standing leg. So we still want to keep our foundation focus on keeping that stable pillar. All right, shake that out. Next, we want to go in the other direction. Warrior 3. So we can start off in our Warrior 1 or crescent pose. If you like to have the heel lifted, it'll be your crescent pose. Arms reach up, engage through the core. We can drop the fingertips down, kick up the back leg, finding a three-legged warrior. This can allow your students to find the squaring of the hips necessary for this pose. So the hips are squared to the floor. We have a soft bend in that standing leg. We're driving out through that back heel, the back reaching heel. So it's as if we were trying to kick something away with our heel. And come on back up. Next, I like to use the cue of grabbing a big beach ball. You have a chair in front of you or a stool, and you're going to take the beach ball and put it on top of the chair, reaching back with that foot. So again, we want to make sure one of the common tendencies here is for the hip to come up or the toes to turn out. So some of the cues we can use are to keep the toes pressing towards the ground, heel pushing out behind you. Hips squared, so even though that the leg is reaching out behind, still think about the two thighs, inner thighs drawing towards each other. And take it to the other side. Finding that back leg. Coming to the fingertips and finding your three-legged warrior first. Get that nice stretch in the standing leg. Tilt the sit bones so they're reaching back behind you. And then grab your beach ball and pick it up. Pulling the toes up towards the nose, back of the heel or the back leg heel, reaching out, kicking back behind. Draw the inner thighs together. Keep the heart lifted. Awesome. Okay. Finally, let's move into tree pose. So, back to our mountain. Heel up one leg and stabilize through the standing leg. Let the knee point out. You can start with the toes touching the ground, pressing into the side of the ankle. Slide it up, pressing the foot into the calf, but keeping it below the knee, or bringing the foot up to the inner thigh, keeping the toes above the knee joint. So I really like to highlight the necessity of avoiding that knee. I will talk about injury here. Our knee does not bend side to side, and there are tendons that people injure that don't heal easily, if at all. So making sure we are putting all of our weight on this leg. Don't push the knee joint out of alignment here. So engage through those muscles, press the foot of the lifted leg into the thigh and push back with the thigh. Hands can come to heart center. Excellent. You can always grow those branches tall or let them grow wide. And let's take it to the other side. Peeling up the foot, engaging through the opposite leg, that standing leg. Rotate the knee outward, find your placement, and engage through both legs. So this one even challenges the standing leg because you have a foot shoving into it. So find that stillness. Squeeze through the glutes, pull the hips forward. They tuck up underneath of the chest, growing your branches tall or wide. For the purposes of our training, we are not going to get into inversions like headstands or handstands. These require a little bit more practice and awareness, and it's difficult when you have such a wide variety of ability that may show up in any given class. Some 200-hour trainings even avoid teaching too many of these types of stands, headstands, handstands, etc., and require that people go through specialty trainings to be able to safely offer these. So standing inversions are a great way to be able to offer the benefits of inversion with the safety of still having the feet on the ground. So let's take a look at a couple of those. So inversion is essentially putting the head below the heart. And we're going to look at 3 different poses that we can do with our students. One is Prasarita Padottanasana. So it's a wide-legged stance, nice and wide. Feet are pointed forward. As we hinge, we're going to keep the legs over, or the hips over, the knees in line with the feet. Place your hands down to the ground. There's a soft bend in the knees, but we actually want those sit bones to be pointing out behind us. So the more that we tilt and we can point the sit bones, not just behind us, but maybe up towards the sky a little bit, you'll feel a lot of stretching through the back of the leg. Draw the belly button back towards the spine. Press those feet into the ground like you're trying to spread the floor out beneath your feet. So if you're actually engaging through those muscles like that, you might get a little more rotation. And the head might be able to drop towards the ground. Just take a few breaths here and notice what sensations are you feeling. Go ahead and bring yourself out of it slowly. You come to a halfway lift. Take the hands to the waist and then rise up. Shaking out those legs. Let's take it into a downward facing dog. This is another standing inversion. We're actually on all fours, but we are on our feet. So we can come down to hands and knees, turn the toes underneath, and then lift the hips up and back. So make sure that we're rooting through the hands, just like when we were practicing our cat-cow and our tabletop pose. Shifting the weight up towards the fingers, so the base of the fingers, the tops of the palms, the fingertips are gripping. There's a soft bend in the elbows and the shoulders roll away from the ears. Soft bend in the knees. See if you can tilt those sit bones up, just like in the last pose that we did, reaching them up towards the sky. Draw the belly button back towards the spine. Pull the belly towards the thighs. Feel that activation. A very similar pose, and especially if somebody has wrist issues here, we can take them to dolphin, which basically means you just drop to the forearms, keeping the elbows in line with the hands and the shoulders. Keeping all of those same points. So we're still pressing the hands in, we're just not putting the weight into the hands. The weight's falling on the forearms. Shoulders roll away from the ears. And let's drop to our knees. And take a child's pose. Stay there for a breath or two. And we'll explore what standing twists look like. Standing twists can be fun and challenging for your students, especially if you have a class with many students who are struggling with one-legged balances. If you're noticing some frustration, taking a standing twist is a great way to offer back some challenge with a little bit more stability. So let's take a look at how keeping the feet and the legs rooted while we move the upper body into the twist can make a huge difference in finding success. Okay, so as I mentioned, sometimes these one-legged balance poses are just a little too frustrating for some students. So if we want to bring some challenge or even use some of our standing twists to create some deeper awareness and muscle control for our members, for our students, those are great ways of helping people find a little more challenge and success with their poses. So we're going to start off with Twisted Goddess. We've already been in our goddess pose, wide stance, feet 45 degrees out, bending through the knees go out 45 degrees as well. We're going to place our hands on the knees, don't press into it. We're going to press them in there, but what we're looking for is an upper body twist. So the legs are working. You could actually be practicing this with your hands hovering. Okay, so let's just drop one shoulder and allow the other shoulder to reach up top. Come back to center. The legs have not changed. Try other side. The legs are active. They are working equally, whether we're in the twist or not. Come on back and straighten those legs. How did that feel? Make sure you're jotting notes about anything that you're having some struggle with. Bring them to the group meet. Great opportunities to learn even more with our group meet discussions. Next, we're going to do twisted prasarita padottanasana. So feet are going to turn inward. We're going to come into that forward fold. But now we're going to stay in that halfway lift. You're going to place one hand flat, pressing equally into both feet. So here's where you'll see the tendency as you lift one hand, see how my hips are starting to rotate? Here, I'll get my head down. So my hips are starting to rotate. So I'm taking the twist out of my spine. So root into the feet, press the floor apart, and then as you twist, keep the hips square to the ground. Notice how you have to activate maybe even a little more to keep that square base. And take it down, root through the feet, and twist. Pressing through. You might need to press a little deeper into the foot that your chest is facing to help keep that stable, squared hip. And take that forward fold. Let's round our back as we just stack one vertebra at a time, coming up out of that. Take your time coming out of standing inversions. Because of that head below the heart, we don't want to just whip people up out of it and have them get lightheaded. So always take your time. Think of a mindful way of coming out of those. Next we have twisted chair. So our fierce pose, we'll get those feet in mountain pose width, dropping the pelvis, tucking in the belly, hands to heart, and we'll take the opposite knee across, opposite elbow across to the knee, pressing in to the hands. One elbow points towards the sky and one points towards the ground. Common tendency here is for, as I come, that back knee is going to come out. So again, we have to really engage through the feet in order to keep the stability in this pose. Try it on the other side, taking the elbow across to the opposite knee, and then look down and make sure that your knees are in alignment. If they're not, adjust into rooting through the feet, pulling back the hips, and let's come out of it. Oh, that is fierce. Okay, revolved crescent, and then we'll look at revolved triangle. So revolved crescent, we have our crescent pose. It's like our warrior one, but the back heel is lifted. For our revolved, feet are hip width apart. We're drawing the inner thighs together. Know that when people twist, they're going to want to drop down, but what we want them to do is squeeze those inner thighs together so that it's more of a twist instead of a dropping. That back leg is not going to bend into the twist. It's going to stay engaged. So we'll just take the opposite arm around, maybe take it to the ground, or find hands to prayer. And come on up, taking it to the other side. Feet are hip width apart. That knee stays over the ankle. As we come forward, we're drawing the inner thighs together and we're twisting through the spine in order to find that revolved crescent. The elbow may drive into the knee, but the knee is going to drive right back. And bring it up. Last one I want to get to is revolved triangle. So we had our triangle pose. We know that's coming down forward. I'm going to take a side view here. Coming down forward. I'm going to step my foot out and rotate it in just a little bit for my twisted triangle. The arm that's over my leg is going to reach back. The arm that's behind me is going to come forward. So we're just going to feel this rotation. I'll take another view here. Here I go. I'm actually squaring my hips, although my feet are not moving. So as I square my hips, I'm drawing my inner thighs together. I'm pulling my hips back. My chest comes forward. That opposite hand finds the floor or a block. And then stack the shoulders on top of each other, reaching those opposite fingers. So some of the things, we'll practice it on the other side while I talk about this. Some of the things, it's that engagement through the inner thighs. So I'll just ask you to get into that foot position, let the legs relax, and then try to feel that twist. Now, press in through the feet, draw the inner thighs together. That already gets you halfway there as you pull those inner thighs together. Now the hips pull back. So I've squeezed, my hip pulls back, and as I drop the shoulder, this back hip is going to come forward, and my front hip is going to pull back as I come down and find my revolved triangle. Pulling the hip back, pressing into the feet, drawing the inner thighs together, tall through the spine, opening the heart. So, it was a fun, super condensed overview of some standing poses and some considerations. Make sure you are practicing these poses. Practice them with a deeper awareness of what you are feeling in your body. Where may you be having some difficulties? Bring those questions and comments to the group meet, because that's where we can work in real time about how to find that deeper connection into the poses for you and translating that to your students. All right, looking forward to seeing all of you at the group meet. Next, we're going to be looking at actually how to build our cueing in all poses. So I'll see you for that next module.